Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Aunia Kahn, author of 13, The Art of Aunia Kahn. Aunia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I am.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say that the first bit of advice that comes to my head is to just keep going. It always seems like a lot. It doesn't matter if you're writing or creating a book of art or whatever you're doing. Creating a book in general, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of focus and a lot of time. And there's a lot of people who give up, and they will start going and they'll get a momentum, and then when they hit a block, they'll just stop. And my biggest advice is just keep going at it, even if you're writing one sentence a day or adding one image a day, or just make time to just keep doing it, and don't give up. Just don't give up. Most of the people in the world that publish or do things, it's all because they just didn't give up. Not because they're amazing, it's because they persevered and kept going.
Exactly. You just got to keep pushing and you can't give up.
No.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
According to everybody I've spoken to and myself, I think it's the idea of believing in what you're doing, believing in yourself, believing that you're worthy enough to be a published author. And a lot of people have a hard time with believing that what they're doing is worthwhile. And they don't think that it has a validity or an importance, and it feels like it's really just important to them. And I think being able to believe in yourself and realize that the things that you are saying, other people probably want to hear, want to read, want to look at, want to enjoy, and to just be yourself, and then believe in yourself and be yourself. And then also the other part is, if you are going to approach a house, because there's two ways of doing this, going to a house or self-publishing, is the whole process of creating a submission that's good. I think that's probably one of the hardest parts. Or on the other side of it, when you're dealing with self-publishing, it's doing all the pieces yourself, because that's a lot of work too.
So which of those opportunities did you take?
I've done both. I've done 10 books, and I've gone both routes.
Which did you prefer?
I like the control of self-publishing with my art projects, but with some of the other larger projects like Oracle decks and whatnot, I've really enjoyed working directly with a publisher, because they do a lot of the work for you. They do a lot of the marketing, and I work with them because I'm a graphic designer, so I often come to them with a little bit more of just not, here it is. I come with these are my ideas for how I want it to look, and they often work within those specs, so I still have a little bit of control. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But I'm a lucky one in that, because I'm a graphic designer. I've been doing that for 20 years, so I kind of can come with a presentation, and oftentimes they work in those confines to how they want it to, but I often feel pretty good about it, rather than just handing it off and they do what they want with it. But people who don't have a background, it's really nice to be able to hand that off and let other people work on the graphics, let other people do the editing, have them come to you, and you are just really the mouthpiece for your work. And it takes a lot of pressure off of people. It's very overwhelming to self-publish.
Well, you mentioned creating a submission that's good. So can you clarify that a little bit for us?
I can. It's really important when submitting anything. So I've been in the art world and in the publishing world. So I've run a gallery, so I've dealt with submissions on that end, and then also dealt with submissions through books as well. And the thing is with a proper submission, it's following the guidelines to a T. not doing what you want to do, you have to follow the guidelines. If they ask a specific question, you give a specific answer. If they want a specific type of image and they want it exactly this size, titled exactly this way, then that's how you have to do it. Because if you do not do it to the proper specs, places like publishing houses get so many submissions that they will just toss it in the trash. Because if you can't follow directions just to send a submission, you're not going to be a good candidate to work with.
Yeah, it's a very early litmus test to see if you're going to be the right fit as a client for that company. And if you can't follow the rules, a lot of people are going to go, well, I mean, I don't know if I want to deal with this person. They didn't follow any rules, any guidelines, so why should I work with them?
Absolutely. It is your first test. It's absolutely the first test of how you will be to work with.
So some tips for people out there that want to submit their books, to just do a submission that's good to publish, and obviously following the rules. What are some of the other pieces of advice that you would give with that?
Definitely make sure that what you're submitting is polished. Sometimes people will submit things, art or, publishing materials that are not polished. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. I mean, even when a publisher publishes something, there's often an error in it. So it's never going to be perfect, but make sure it's polished, that you've taken the time, that you've had other people look at it. Because when you are dealing with your own manuscript or book, you're going to be so in it that it's going to be hard for you to see out of it. So a good suggestion with submissions is making sure that the product that you're submitting is reviewed by other people in your peer group or people that you know, and for them to check for errors or check for, misalignment, and how you can do a better job at preparing it for it to be viewed in the best manner, of course, right? And the other thing I would say as well is that making sure that you're using, when you're sending something to a publisher, remember, it isn't about you. It isn't about me. It's how is the publisher going to benefit from this, and how is the public going to benefit from this? It's like applying for a job. You don't want to go in and go me. You want to go in and go, I have this, and this could be advantageous to the community. I feel like this could be advantageous to the publishing house. How can we work together? Often when people are sending submissions, it's very self-focused. Me. It's understandable because it's your project, but you have to flip it and think about it in a more marketing and more partnership-based relationship.
So when you submitted your book to publishers, do you recall how many submissions you did?
Oh, I submitted my first tarot deck back in 2004 to 3 houses, and I got denied by all of them but one. And when they wanted the completed project, the turnaround time was almost outside of what I could have done, but I accepted it because I was so excited. But when you're asking that question, I think it's important to note that you should submit to various places. You shouldn't just submit to one. Submitting to various places, but make sure that they're in your niche, that you're not just blindly submitting to places, that you know that your project would fit with them.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launches that has worked well.
I think one of the most important parts of launching a book is having good graphic and marketing materials. We really, as people, focus a lot now on social media, websites, and other things, and people are very visual. So people don't want to read a lot of text. They want to see things, and they want to be interested. So, for example, if you walk into a bookstore, how many of us walk into a store and go, that book looks amazing? The inside could be crap, you don't know, but the outside could look really good. And that is where we are in a marketing sense, is we're visually attracted to things. So creating really good marketing materials, having a good book cover, as well as having materials like, flyers and graphics for Instagram or Facebook, having a website that's promoting that book. It could be, you could have numerous books on one website, or you could create a website dedicated directly for that book. But when you submit to a publisher, they want to know you're serious. So it's nice to have a website dedicated to that book, or if you've been previously published, a section in your website dedicated to that specific book.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, it does come down to visuals, and people will judge you based on your cover and your graphics.
Totally. It doesn't matter. You can have a horrible story inside, or a horrible, and people will judge you. But then there's beautiful, wonderful literature that gets overlooked that people have written because they didn't take the time to get a good cover. And your cover is your calling card. That's gonna, when you look at a book on a table or you look at a book in a store, you make a snap judgment. And so that's the most important thing for marketing, I think.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
You know, this is a really hard question because I have so many books and I've invested in a very large library through my whole life. So I have books stacked everywhere, numerous bookshelves. So I'm going to say 3, and then I'm going to give you what I learned generally about life through these books. First is The Nice Man, The Extraordinary Life and Times of John Hunter, The Father of Modern Surgery by Wendy Moore. The Body Keeps Score is the next one. Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma by Bessel van der Kolk. And The Brain That Changes Itself, Stories of Personal Triumph from the Frontiers of Brain Science by Norman Deutsch. And what I really found in these books is all about perseverance and the trial and errors of trying things and seeing how we can actually change the brain and change our lives in general by just trying things. Good example, publishing, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Trying something, doing something new. You know, they talk about that in neuroscience, how we try things new and it changes our brain completely. And so through those books, I've really pushed myself to continue to try new things. If I, put my shoe on my right foot first every day, I try to put it on my left foot every, here and there. Or if I sit on the right side of the table, I try to sit on the left side. Just change it up a bit because we're very habit oriented. But by doing these things, what's really wonderful, we become more creative. It opens space because instead of becoming automatic, we become more thoughtful in what we're doing, which also creates better space to be good creatives and writers.
Excellent. And for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
And my favorite quote is, I love when people that have been through hell walk out of the flames carrying buckets of water for those still consumed by the fire. And that's by Stephanie Sparks. And when I first saw that quote, it really just punched me in the gut. It just really, again, it's that resilience thing and that ability to kind of help other people along. And that's always been my mantra. It's like, how do we help other people? How can we don't get anywhere in life without helping each other. We don't climb up the ladder by ourselves. It doesn't work like that. We're interdependent with each other. We need each other. And that really shows that people can go through hell and then they can come back and they can help others in hell. And that's the same with books or like what you're doing. I know what you're doing isn't hell, but what I'm saying is
depends on the day.
Right? I get it. But what you're doing is you're helping others. You're bringing other people in who've done the thing and then bringing the water, per se, in to help the others. Of course, there's a deeper meaning to it about trauma and other things that I'm interested in. But, overall, in speaking to this, it's really about how we can help others who are consumed or overwhelmed or don't know where to get started.
Well, and that's always been our philosophy. I was a teacher for 9 years, and I taught ESL for a number of years. I taught special needs for several years as well. And that's the main thing, was about giving back. And now I have the privilege to do that with this podcast and my hybrid publishing company and our virtual summit businesses. We get that opportunity then to help people in their journey. And what I found is when you have that philosophy, that everything else takes care of itself.
Absolutely, it does. If you give back, it always balances itself out. There's a real big thing about karma. I believe it greatly. You just have to turn around and grab someone's hand and pull them along with you. It's the right thing to do in the world today. especially in the world today.
Definitely. Well, Aunia, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
So they can visit me at AuniaKahn.com, AuniaKahn.com, and then under every other social thing in the world, it's under the same name. So you can find me pretty much everywhere.
Aunia, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.